So we are in a very dangerous place with AI if we continue this path of using it as a weapon to dominate not only the economy and the military, but countries and human lives. So will things get so bad that we find ourselves in a scene like that which is found in the Terminator, the rise of the machines, right? No, we won't get there. Why? Because God will intervene. This has been prophesied already by the Blessed Mother in many recent apparitions and by Jesus through approved prophetic revelations. The time is very short before the fire will come. And the fire will be so intense that no machines will be left, no satellites, no computers, no phones. I'm not saying we're going to go back to the primitive state, but I'm just saying we will be living simply as God intended off of the land with the time to love God, serve each other, and steward the earth as Adam and Eve were asked to do in the beginning. It won't be Eden on earth because this won't be the final coming. It will be what St. Bernard of Clairvaux in the 12th century and Saints Augustine and Cyril of Jerusalem from the 4th century referred to as, respectively, and yet hidden intermediary coming. That is between the incarnation and the final coming in the flesh, as well as referred to as a Sabbath rest.
Thanks for tuning in to Everything Catholic again, and for this one I'd like to go with the format of sharing compilation of clips with you again, and we'll start with this clip of Father Iannuzzi from the recent interview. Listen to this.
Now, it's important to note that Pope Leo XIV put out his first encyclical entitled Magnificat Humanitas. And really, this encyclical is a stroke of human genius under the divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit, because he answers all the questions people are concerned about pertaining to where AI can take us, how far it will go, etc., etc. So he makes it very clear AI has no conscience, no conscience. Okay, so it cannot deliberate, consult with grace. It has no communication with divine grace that comes from the Creator. Okay, and he emphasizes that it has no soul. These AI machines, they do not have a conscience. They do not even have a soul. And human conscience cannot be transferred from a human to AI. It's not possible. These are all theories that they're trying to purport and also deceive the masses. So they're making, when I say they, I'm referring to those who are promoting AI, whether it's through the media or through the actual creation of these robots. That's what really they are, robots. All they do is take commands and orders and through processed information, and then they can create a logarithm or an algorithm, and then based upon patterns, they can predict what they think is next. And again, the word think is different than the way we think, because our thinking is based upon grace, united with free will, which robots don't have, and a free conscience, which robots don't have, to form an upright intention, which robots cannot do. So Pope Leo came out boldly and said, AI must be disarmed. You notice the word he used, disarmed. Why disarmed? Because it's being used as a weapon for big business. So he says we must disarm AI. And he says that he chose this word specifically. It's close to his heart. He says, and these are the words of the Pope, disarming AI means freeing it from the mentality of armed competition, which today is not limited simply to the military context, but is also an economic and cognitive phenomenon. This entails a race for ever more powerful algorithms and larger data sets, driven by the desire to secure geopolitical or commercial dominance. To disarm means discrediting the assumption that technical power automatically confers the right to govern. To disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. It must be disarmed, welcoming, and accessible. And then he goes on to say how even in these data centers, we, the people, should have a say in what's going on. We have no say right now. So we are in a very dangerous place with AI if we continue this path of using it as a weapon to dominate not only the economy and the military, but countries and human lives. So will things get so bad that we find ourselves in a scene like that which is found in the Terminator, the rise of the machines, right? No, we won't get there. Why? Because God will intervene. This has been prophesied already by the Blessed Mother in many recent apparitions and by Jesus through approved prophetic revelations. The time is very short before the fire will come. And the fire will be so intense that no machines will be left, no satellites, no computers, no phones. I'm not saying we're going to go back to the primitive state, but I'm just saying we will be living simply as God intended off the land with the time to love God, serve each other, and steward the earth as Adam and Eve were asked to do in the beginning. It won't be Eden on earth because this won't be the final coming. It will be what St. Bernard of Clairvaux in the 12th century and Saints Augustine and Cyril of Jerusalem from the 4th century referred to as, respectively, and yet hidden intermediary coming. That is between the incarnation and the final coming in the flesh, as well as referred to as a Sabbath rest. And this will be marked by a spiritual interior reign of Christ in the human will, making those humans on earth, the remnant that survives the fire, living hosts, living tabernacles, where they will all worship Jesus. It will be the Eucharistic reign of Jesus as mentioned by Our Lady to Father Gobi. It will be the triumph of the Immaculate Heart as mentioned by our Blessed Mother to the three shepherd children of Fatima. It will be the reign of the divine will on earth as in heaven as prophesied by Jesus to the servant of God, Luisa Picaretta.
Now, just for a quick revision, let's revisit this clip on the fire that he mentioned at the end of the previous clip. Listen to this.
I would like to address the theme that pertains to these end times in which we live, and that is the general state of confusion in the world and in the church that leads to the fulfillment of the Our Father prayer, namely the reign of God's will on earth as in heaven. The Lord is reminding us why God permits the confusion that we presently experience, even at the hands of evildoers. Certainly, it is in part the result of our collective sinfulness. And this collective sinfulness that is instigated by the devil, who works through sin in man, is part of God's divine providence. God doesn't will evil, but he permits it, as he did original sin, as he did the rebellion of the angels, for ultimately a greater good, but only for those who love him and seek to live in his will. Now, the result of the Satan's activity in these end times through confusion leads to chastisements. And that is why the Lord said in this third renewal, when the earth is purged, God will reveal what his divinity did within his humanity. When he speaks of the earth being purged, he's referring to chastisements. The earth will be purged, and mankind, in large part, destroyed, meaning kill their bodies, not their souls, and purified through fire. He speaks of three renewals also, St. Peter, when he speaks of 3 heavens and 3 earths. St. Peter states that the first heavens and earth were done away with on account of the deluge, the flood. And that's when God appeared in the sky as a rainbow, presence of God's blessing upon mankind. And God promised he would never flood the earth again in that way. So we are living in the second heavens and second earth, following the flood. And these second heavens and second earth, St. Peter states, are reserved for fire. And when the fire comes, the earth will be purged, and there will be a new heavens and a new earth. Fire will come from the center of the earth. What is that? The earth's core, which NASA has stated has been cracked years ago. Maybe NASA is telling the truth for once. Who knows? That fire will come from the core of the earth, but not just from the earth. Remember what Our Lady prophesied at Akita, Japan, which was approved by the church? That fire will fall also from the sky, sparing neither laity nor priests. The good will suffer with the bad, the living will envy the dead, to overwhelm mankind and make him believe that God exists. Now, this fire will strike first and foremost evildoers, and those who are good and live a life of simplicity will be spared. And the fire that descends upon earth will damage crops and mankind's nourishment. And this fire will flare up in countries. Further purging the earth and man is the sword that represent wars, which we see happening today. And there are other forms of chastisement. Fire, sword, and blood. Water also will spill out of its boundaries, not as in the days of Noah covering all generations, the entire generation of that time, but impacting nations, certain nations, not all. And wind will spill out of their boundary to destroy part of humanity and bury man. The winds, the waters, fire will all concur in purging the earth, in getting rid of all evildoers, while those who live in God's divine will have dominion over these elements. Peals of thunder and lightning, a terrible hail, earthquakes that annihilate entire cities. There will be sudden deaths. There will be contagions. But in the end, the nations will turn back to God. That is, the remnant survivors, which in sacred scripture is no more than 1/3 of humanity. So 2/3 will be destroyed by these means. Now, this introduces the book of Revelation, the times in which we're living right now. The book of Revelation talks about the evil of Satan through sin in the world, generating a confusion that God avails himself of without condoning and leads to, through purgation, illumination, unification, and divinization.
And for the last clip I'd like to share with you in this video is another clip from my interview with Father Iannuzzi, and it's on the importance of the virtue of humility. Listen to this.
Yes, humility was a very important virtue. Jesus tells the servant of God, Luisa Picaretta, so Jesus tells her in Volume 2, April 3, 1899, when she is about 34 years old, there cannot be true humility without confidence. Humility without confidence is a false virtue. Now, what is confidence? Remember the image of divine mercy underneath which Jesus instructed Faustina to have inscribed, Jesus, I trust in you. Well, that's confidence. When you place your trust, your confidence in God, that gives way to humility. Why? Because you are trusting in the source of truth that will lead you. You don't lead yourself. You allow Christ to lead you. That's the first step toward humility. Acknowledging that God is the guide. He makes the rules, he makes the decisions, and you follow suit by following his decisions, his commandments, his rules. Now, Jesus also tells Luisa Picaretta in other parts of the volumes, in particular volume 4, June 30th, 1901, the virtue which most exalts God is humility, and the virtue which most exalts the creature before God and men is humility. And then in volume 3 on June 2nd, 1900, here she's at the age of 35, the same age when she entered into the center of the divine will and received the embrace of the three divine persons, the breath of the three divine persons. Jesus tells her the most perfect, the most sublime humility is that of losing one's own way of reasoning. Okay, so here the Lord is telling her that one must have faith along with reason to do the will of God, not just rely upon one's own wits. Okay, so humility gives way for God to operate in one's own life. And it is a very powerful virtue. I'll conclude with this other statement from the same date. He tells her, lack of esteem for others is lack of true Christian humility and docility, because a humble and docile spirit knows how to respect everyone and always interprets the things of others in a positive light. So, in answer to the question that you offer, namely, pride was one of the main reasons of the fall of the evil one and the fallen angels, and also the reason why so many people today refuse to listen to church authorities like the Roman Pontiff, the Magisterium. And why is this? It's because they lack humility. They lack this virtue, which is 180 degrees opposed to the example of Jesus, Mary, Luisa Picaretta, that we're all called to follow. It's contrary to the example of the lives of the saints. Because what does Our Lady say, for example, in the Magnificat? He cast down the mighty from their thrones and lifts up the lowly. He looked upon the lowliness of his handmaid. This is humility. Okay.
Well, that is all for the video this time. Again, thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time to be here with us. Always remember that if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please don't ever hesitate to let us know in the comments below.
I mean, there have been cases where AI chatbots, for example, pushed a teen to kill himself, or one of these AI false partners asked the boy to, or the girl to do some things that were just immoral. So as Pope Francis puts it, the youth today allow themselves to become social hermits, meaning living in the world of the computer and the chat boxes and things like that, to the detriment of their own social virtues, which can only grow by means of contact with neighbor. Then they distance themselves from God, and they lose the whole meaning of their reason for being here on earth. Yeah, so it's something that has to be given a lot of attention, and this is why Pope Leo came out with this timely encyclical.